Welcome to Suffolk Matters, where all of Suffolk County meets the men and women of Suffolk AME. News, opinions, and insights you won't hear anywhere else.
Welcome to another edition of Suffolk Matters on Walk 97.5 and 94.3 The Shark, where Suffolk County meets the men and women of Suffolk AME. News and views you can't hear anywhere else.
Good morning to our Suffolk Matters listeners. I'm AME Chief of Staff Ryan McGarry, filling in for President Dan Leveler this morning. And with us today is Paule Pachter, the Chief Executive Officer for Long Island Cares, the Harry Chapin Food Bank. Good morning, Paul. Welcome back to the show. Great to have you.
Morning, Ryan. It's my pleasure to be here with you.
We really appreciate it. And just to get off started, and I know most people know who Long Island Cares is and the invaluable work you do for the region, but just for the listeners who might not be aware, what is Long Island Cares, what's its mission, and what is it that you guys do for the people of Suffolk and Long Island every day?
Well, Long Island Cares is the regional food bank for Nassau and Suffolk County. We were established in 1980 by the late singer, songwriter, and social activist Harry Chapin. And what we have been doing for the last 42 years is providing emergency food assistance for more than 250,000 Long Islanders, including 79,000 children. We do that by providing food and funding for a network of 324 local member agencies. About 60% of those agencies are located within Suffolk County. And we also provide a network of direct service programs directly through Long Island Cares, that being our 6 satellite locations where we operate our own emergency food pantries and retail food rescue programs, community outreach for veterans, the homeless, children, seniors, and a lot of social advocacy, supporting legislation, supporting sound social policy that hopefully one day will result in nobody being hungry on Long Island.
Yeah, that's ultimately the goal, right, is to end the food insecurity crisis. And I know it's been a tough battle and a long one at that, but your organization has been doing some tremendous work. And you've been the CEO of it for some time now. Just how long have you been in the role? What drew you to the organization originally?
Well, I've been the CEO of Long Island Cares. This is my 15th year. Really what drove me to consider the position 15 years ago and, accept an interview with the board of directors was my familiarity with the organization when it was founded by Harry Chapin. But I also felt as if I had a connection to what Harry saw was the role of this organization, and that's to address the root causes of hunger and to advocate for social policy and additional funding and community education so that people understood what it means to be food insecure in one of the richest regions of the nation. The other thing that attracted me to Long Island Cares was the ability to grow the organization, both expand and diversify its board of directors, but also to establish 21 right now direct service programs that we operate. And we've had a great degree of success with that. So that's what drove me there, and that's what continues to drive what we do every day.
No, and we're very thankful for that. And, many of the same things that drove you to want to lead the organization, Long Island Cares, are the same exact reasons that make it such an attractive organization for our AME leadership and our AME members to support. Obviously, we represent 10,000 families, 10,000 members of AME, and I got to tell you, whenever we do anything to benefit Long Island Cares, the response and the reception from our members is phenomenal. It's a cause that they really believe in. These are members who provide services to the community. A lot of times folks in the community who need these services every day by the nature of their work, and they understand organizations like yours are filling in the blank, so to speak, for where government can't get to. And whenever we do a food drive for Long Island Cares, whenever we host an event for Long Island Cares, we get a great response and turnout. And again, I think it's a lot to do with those same types of core drives that people understand that we have to take care of our neighbors to live in a civilized society. So we really are thankful for the partnership. For our listeners, though, who maybe aren't as familiar, how can they learn more about Long Island Cares? Where can they go to support the organization?
Well, if people want to learn more about Long Island Cares, the Harry Chapin Regional Food Bank, they can begin by visiting our website, logging on to licares.org. There they will find opportunities to support the organization in terms of volunteering or making a donation, attending one of our special events. But they can also learn about our history, about the services we provide. But I think the most important thing that we feature on our website's the food locator, where people can log on and right on the homepage, open up the food locator, put in their address or their zip code, and find the addresses and maps to all 324 organizations that we support.
Wow, that is fantastic. And the food locator sounds like a great program. And I got to tell you, with my AME hat off, I've worked for some of those organizations that Long Island Cares helped support. I know, especially during the COVID crisis in Patchogue, where I live, we instituted the Community Organizations Active in Disaster to deliver food service to those in need in the greater Patchogue region. We extended beyond the village's boundaries to the greater region. But the great work that the volunteers and the organizations that came together for that effort, the great work we all did, would not have been possible without Long Island Cares' partnership. We were going there multiple times a week to get big, we had landscaping volunteers with their trucks, filling up their box trucks with food that we could then distribute to the local community. Mm-hmm. And again, without a regional food bank such as Long Island Cares, that wouldn't have been possible. So we definitely thank you for that. But I do want to keep mentioning on the Chapin Legacy, because personally that's something that has, been meaningful in my life. Growing up as a Long Island kid, he was a Long Island guy himself, singer-songwriter, and always had a message in his music that really resonated with his fans, and he took that message beyond his music to found Long Island Cares, which resonated with the hearts of his fellow residents. And I was significantly younger, but growing up in the 90s, it still was a huge influence on my life, my approach, even where I went to school, followed in his footsteps, the same place of college. We both went to Cornell, which was great. But I just want to know what is his legacy here on Long Island from your perspective? And speaking of that, it ties right into a great project you guys are undertaking right now, which is the Harry Chapin Legacy Walkway. If you wouldn't mind just talking a little bit about that.
Sure. Well, first, in regards to Harry's legacy, Harry actually founded two organizations in his lifetime, which, of course, as you know, was brief, limited to 38 years. He founded Why Hunger, initially called World Hunger Years. And Why Hunger was an organization still in existence today, very active, very successful, that look at hunger on a global scale. Third world countries, Europe, and they provide funding to incubate other direct service programs, but primarily looking at it on a global scale. And then in 1980, 5 years later, he founded Long Island Cares. At that time, it was estimated that there were approximately 50,000 people on Long Island who were struggling with food insecurity. And Harry set out on a campaign to raise funding, both from Nassau and Suffolk County, government funding. And then he was able to get the funding matched by New York State, and New York State provided him with 2 buildings on the ground of Pilgrim Psychiatric Center in Brentwood. And that's the way Long Island Cares was founded. But what Harry really focused in on in establishing Long Island Cares is an understanding of the root causes of hunger and creating programs, developing policy that would address them. So, for instance, people that are unemployed historically have been food insecure. The aged, people with disabilities, our veterans. Homelessness leads to food insecurity. Poverty leads to food insecurity. And of course, today in 2022, it's hard to not accept the fact that war, creates food insecurity. We look at the millions of people in Ukraine who are right now being starved to death without any food. And those are things that we have to be concerned about, and we are. But how we go about staying true to Harry's legacy is really without programming. Harry had a soft spot for people in need, and we know who those people are. But it's also through our government affairs work in where we do take positions on legislation and encourage sound social policy. Most recently, we were instrumental in working with Congress to have President Biden announce, as he did yesterday, I know this is being taped, but what he announced on Wednesday, May the 4th, which was the creation of the White House Conference on Health, Nutrition, and Food Insecurity. Long Island Cares played a major role in that, in working with members of Congress to see that happens. So that's how we stay true to Harry. But you mentioned the Legacy Walkway, which is something we're all very proud of. This year, Harry would have turned 80 years old in December. And it's also the 50th anniversary of his iconic song, Taxi. And we've done a lot in the last few years to continue Harry's legacy, but also to accomplish things, create things in the community where people would remember him. Case in point, upon Harry's death 42 years ago, we had the Lakeside Theater in Eisenhower Park renamed in his honor. So it's the Harry Chapin Lakeside Theater. We followed suit with Heckscher Park in Huntington, where we had the Rainbow Stage there in Heckscher Park, renamed the Chapin Rainbow Stage. A few years back, about 10 years ago, David's Drive in Hauppauge was renamed Harry Chapin Way in honor of the 30th anniversary of his passing. And now, where we look 40 years later, Long Island Cares is installing in front of the food bank in Hauppauge a commemorative walkway. It's quite beautiful. There are engraved bricks on the walkway from our donors and our supporters. There are benches that are being installed, trees that are being installed, but the centerpiece of the walkway is what I always believed Harry deserved, and that was some type of monument and statue. And so we are going to unveil a bronze sculpture of a bust of Harry Chapin, which is being created by Susan Bahari, a sculptor in California, who just so happened to grow up next door to Harry Chapin.
Oh, wow.
So we brought Susan back after all these years, and on July 15th, we're going to unveil the bust. And then on July 16th, in Suffolk County at least, County Executive Steve Ballone has proclaimed it Harry Chapin Day in Suffolk. So we're looking forward to the ceremonies and everything that comes after that.
Fantastic. Again, for our listeners, my name is Ryan McGarry, filling in for President Dan Leveler this morning, and with us is Paule Pachter, CEO of Long Island Cares. And Paul, so much great things going on there. AME was proud to sponsor, in part, a brick of this walkway that you're building. We're always proud to support Long Island Cares at every opportunity we can. For our listeners, how can they get involved with the Walkway Project? How can they maybe buy a brick or support the effort?
Sure. If people would like to purchase a brick for the Legacy Walkway, they simply have to log on to our website at licares.org, click on the link to the Chapin Legacy Walkway, and there's all the information.
Fantastic. And, one of the other things, you gave us so much information there when talking about Harry Chapin, obviously the organization's founder. One of the things that we really appreciate about your organization is it's not just a Band-Aid approach. Obviously, you are addressing food insecurity directly by collecting and distributing food to those who need it. But as you said, you're also looking to address the root problem of food insecurity itself, which I think is extremely noble and important. And so congratulations to you and your government relations team on the big news coming out of Washington, D.C. last week. Are there any other government or pieces of government policies or legislations that you guys are currently working on or need assistance in maybe getting politicians to move?
Well, the other, to be honest with you, Ryan, the other victory we just had was in Albany, where the state legislature, in negotiating the 2022-23 executive budget with Governor Hochul, supported Long Island Care's proposal to increase funding for the Hunger Prevention and Nutrition Assistance Program. This is a program that's been funded at $34 million for the past 15 years, while at the same time the number of New Yorkers struggling with food insecurity increases. We saw close to a 70% increase during the first 2 years of COVID. And for the last, 10 years at least, we've been advocating for an increase in that funding. And although historically previous governors provided one-shot funding for the budget for the hunger prevention program, this year the legislature was successful in working with Governor Hochul to invest an additional $22 million. So now we're looking at about a $52 million budget, which is going to allow the food banks and other hunger relief organizations in New York State to really accomplish a lot in terms of addressing the root causes, in terms of providing more food for people in need. So we're excited about that as well.
Oh, that is fantastic. And, the partnership between AME and Long Island Cares just makes so much sense for exactly what you're describing here, is the way that government and government workers are able to partner with the private sector nonprofit organizations like Long Island Cares to ensure that there are no gaps in service to the people who desperately need these services. And food insecurity leads to so many other social and economic problems for those who are unfortunate enough to suffer from it. And then, on a little bit more of a positive side, the other thing that we're excited about is it's coming up next weekend, is the May Day Music Festival. And for us, that partnership made perfect sense to name Long Island Cares as one of the primary beneficiaries of this charitable endeavor, because it is the Harry Chapin Food Bank. And what better overlap for a nonprofit organization with a music festival as the fundraiser than an organization that was founded by a local musician here on Long Island and whose legacy is continuing to improve the lives of so many of our fellow neighbors and fellow residents. So again, that festival is the May Day Music Festival. That's coming up on May 14th, this coming Saturday. MaydayMusicFestival.com is a way folks can get involved there, buy some tickets. And it's also a food drive. So we were pretty proud. 2019 was our first year, obviously with the COVID pandemic, which I know we'll talk about a little bit today. But we had to put it on hold for 2 years. But in that first year in 2019, we raised over 800 pounds of food at the May Day Music Festival. So for our listeners, what does 800 pounds of food mean?
Well, 800 pounds of food means about 715 meals that we can provide to people in need. And, it's so rewarding to us to once again have this opportunity to work with the members of Suffolk AME and the May Day Festival, because, as you mentioned, this organization, Long Island Cares, has its DNA in music. We're the only charity on Long Island that was founded by a musician. And here we are 42 years later, still committed to making music a very important part of what we do. So the May Day Festival is part of that plan. Music festivals, concerts, even school performances where we can reach out to the community with a musical event and connect it either to a food drive or a fun drive. To us, it means turning music into meals. Harry would have loved this. Harry would have thought that the relationship between Long Island Cares and the May Day Festival was just like such an important thing, just as he thought that his colleagues in the music industry had a role to play. And we've been very fortunate over the years to have the support of people like Bruce Springsteen and Billy Joel towards our work. They're both donors of ours. So we try as much as we can to continue to look for opportunities to make music part of the solution.
Oh, that's fantastic. And we'd love to get those names at a future May Day Music Festival one day, but we're still proud of the lineup we have coming up this year. Yeah, we have the Spin Doctors headlining. I know a lot of folks are excited about that. The Smithereens with Marshall Crenshaw, the Crash Test Dummies. It's going to be a great day in May. And the best part is folks can feel really good about having fun that day, because just by the nature of having fun, they're supporting their friends, their family, and their neighbors. Again, for our listeners who might not be aware of the mission of the May Day Music Festival, it's a wholly nonprofit endeavor. We split the proceeds into two pools. Half of the funds get used for local scholarship funds, which is a great way to indirectly address food insecurity. And the other half goes directly to Long Island Cares, in addition to the on-site food drive that we've just been talking about. And we mentioned 800 pounds in 2019. We've set the goal of 2022 to break 1,000, to break that half-ton mark. So we would really encourage anybody coming out on May 14th to the May Day Music Festival to bring some food with them, donate to Long Island Cares, the Harry Chapin Food Bank, and then go have a great day of family fun inside the festival grounds. But for those listening who are interested in bringing food to the festival, what type of food is the best to bring? What are you guys in most need of at these types of food drives?
Well, as you may know, most of the food that we purchase and distribute is non-perishable food. However, we do work with plenty of perishable foods. But if you're coming to the May Day Festival to take part in the concert and also a food drive, things like boxes of pasta and instant potatoes, canned vegetables, canned fruit, boxes of cereal, containers of peanut butter and jelly, all the staples that people would need. Also, if people want, they can donate baby food, they can donate diapers, they could bring a toy, they can bring pet food, because we deal with that too. So whatever people feel they want to contribute, they can also check that out on our website, where we have a listing of the most distributed foods that we do with the food bank. So I think people can make this very easy for people to just bring a donation of food.
No, it's fantastic. We're really looking forward to hitting and exceeding our goal of 1,000 pounds. Again, we did 800 in 2019. We're expecting a much larger turnout in 2022. And we also expect people to really support that mission of supporting Long Island Cares. And what I also want to point out, which is great on your part, is that your team will be incentivizing food donations by giving out raffle tickets at the event. And folks will have the opportunity, and these are music fans if they're going to a music festival, right? They'll have the opportunity to win some amazing music memorabilia from some of the musicians that are either at the show that day or also just musicians that Long Island Cares has partnered with over the years. So you bring the food, you can feel good, but you also have a shot to win something that most people are going to be pretty happy about bringing back to their home and displaying for their friends and family to see. Again, for our listeners, we're joined today by Paule Pachter, CEO of Long Island Cares. My name is Ryan McGarry, Chief of Staff for Suffolk AME, filling in for President Dan Leveler. We're talking about all the great work Long Island Cares does for our region, as well as the upcoming May Day Music Festival on May 14th. And Paul, we talked about it briefly, and I want to make sure we focus on it before we run out of time. That is, obviously, we're here to talk about May Day Music Festival, but we haven't been able to have it since 2019 because of COVID. To what extent did that COVID pandemic impact food insecurity and just the way you operate?
Well, what COVID brought to the table for the first 2 years was about a 72% increase in the number of people who were experiencing food insecurity. So many people were furloughed or laid off. People were being, isolated at home. People were getting sick and not being able to go to food pantries because so many of them were closed. And those that were open, everything was being distributed on the outside in parking lots. But what we saw at Long Island Cares is we were very fortunate to be able to secure funding to open up 25 temporary pop-up distribution locations in Nassau, mostly. But then we also had our satellite locations in Suffolk. So we were able to provide food assistance to an additional 223,000 Long Islanders. These are people that came to the food bank for the very first time. Wow. Many of them had made donations to Long Island Care, supported the food drives. So when on any average day, we're working with about 250,000 people. During COVID, we were addressing the needs of 480,000 people. That took an extreme toll on our staff. We had hired an additional 25 people temporarily. But then, on the positive side, people recognized what we were doing. And so the generosity of the corporate sector, individuals, foundations, carried us through for the 2 years with no problems whatsoever. We had enough food, we had enough volunteers, and at the same time as we're trying to make sure that the community is being fed, those that need the food assistance, we're also trying to ensure that our staff is safe and that their health is good. We did have about a dozen of our staff members contract COVID and had to be out, but we had enough staff and we had enough volunteers to get the job done. And reflecting on what we were able to accomplish, probably wouldn't have changed anything we did. Maybe not work 7 days a week, maybe just limit it to 6. But it was an experience. It took its toll on all our staff. But we moved forward, and we came out of it just fine.
Yeah, no, I think it's a real testament, those numbers you're sharing with us, a real testament to the great work of your entire team and the organization. I know in November you were proud to announce that for the first time in a very long time, the rate of food insecurity actually dipped in trend instead of continued to increase. So that was rewarding and, again, a testament to the hard work of you and your team. But unfortunately, right now, as we're coming out of this COVID crisis and we're feeling good, again, looking forward to Mayday Music Festival, coming out together in crowds, outdoor, safe environment, we also do have staggering rates of inflation at approximately 7%. I just heard on the news this morning that 63% of our fellow Americans are changing their behavior within grocery stores, what they're buying to supply food for their families. To what extent has this inflation of 2022 impacted the work that you guys are doing and the need for food that you're seeing on the ground?
Well, what's happening right now as a result of inflation is that we are seeing an uptick in the number of people that are not only coming to Long Island Cares, but coming to our member agencies. At the end of last month, when we ran the numbers, there were an additional 35,000 people who went to a local food pantry or visited the food bank for some emergency food assistance. For instance, if we have fresh vegetables or fresh fruit, the whole produce line, people will come. And that's all they'll ask for. If people know that we have frozen chickens or frozen beef or frozen lamb, they'll come for that. When we have eggs, they come for that. So people are utilizing the pantries to supplement what they're able to afford in the grocery store, but with about 25 to 30% increase in the cost of food, and still problems with the supply chain, it's starting to result in more people coming. And hopefully we can get this under control sooner rather than later.
Yeah, absolutely. And those numbers are staggering. 35,000 more families coming to Long Island Cares for food to address their own food insecurity issues for themselves and their families. And at the beginning of the show, you mentioned serving 250,000. So 35,000 is not a small proportion by any means of the work you're already doing. So again, if you wouldn't mind just providing our listeners with the website, because again, for the fortunate listeners who aren't struggling or struggling as much as their fellow neighbors, where can they go to lend support?
Well, if people want to support Long Island Cares or if they need assistance, they can visit us online at licares.org. They can call us at 631-582-FOOD, or they can also follow us on social media. We are on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and Instagram and TikTok and all the other social media platforms. And, our social media reach right now is about 104,000 people.
Incredible.
At the end of last month. And we do know that people communicate with us online, and we're more than happy to communicate back to them. But there are many ways, for people to contribute, to volunteer, to attend a special event, and we really hope that people will. And knowing that by attending the Suffolk AME May Day Festival, you're also helping to feed the hungry.
That's fantastic, Paul, and we're almost out of time, but before I let you go, I noticed, but of course our listeners on radio can't see you as well as I can right now, but you have a beautiful pin, the American flag and the Ukrainian flag, to show your solidarity, obviously an important word for the labor movement. But we talked about it a little earlier, and I know we've been promoting the May Day Music Festival on May 14th, but you have your own concert coming up to benefit the Ukraine crisis and the aggressive war by Russia. But also, you touched on it a little earlier. How has that war impacted international food supply and the work you do, and why is this concert that you guys are hosting so important?
Well, for one, we have been working collaboratively over the last about 70 days, I think, with two organizations, Ukrainian Americans of Long Island, who are raising money and collecting clothing and medical supplies to send over to Ukraine. So we've been working closely with them to provide them with some technical support and logistical support, as well as making our own contribution to them. And we're also working with the Global Food Banking Network. There are 26 food banks in Eastern Europe, including one in Ukraine. These food banks, whether they're in Ukraine, Russia, Slovakia, they are going to be needed so importantly over the next 10 years, 15 years, as Ukraine starts to rebuild. And so on May 12th, Thursday, May 12th, Long Island Cares will be at Mulcahy's Concert Hall and Pub in Wantor with members of the Cars, Hootie and the Blowfish, the Joe Perry Project, and the Red, White, and Blues Band, doing a concert there, members of Zebra, all to raise money for Long Island Cares, the Global Food Banking Network, and Ukrainian Americans of Long Island. The people of Ukraine are struggling. They are really suffering under the hands of Russian aggression, and we've really got to be there for them in the years to come. And certainly we've been working with local organizations to lend support whenever we can to people from Ukraine that are now arriving on Long Island to live with family members. So we want to make sure that we provide them with food as well as working with a couple of the animal shelters who are rescuing pets from Ukraine. We want to provide them with the pet food and supplies they need as well. Ukraine this is not just their war. This is everyone's war, at least everyone who has a love for democracy and freedom.
Couldn't agree with you more, Paul. It's great work that you're doing. We thank you for it. Obviously, in times of crisis, it's amazing to know that we have people like you, organizations like yours, that are carrying the torch for humanity, and we appreciate that. And for our listeners, while we're talking about some serious issues, some heavy issues, we also encourage them to have fun while supporting their organizations. It's going to be a great week of live music on May 12th at Mulcahy's to support the Ukrainian effort, Long Island Cares, a concert there. And then on Saturday, our big festival, the first festival of the region, where we're really looking forward to folks coming out and joining en masse in a safe, outdoor, family-friendly environment on May 14th for the May Day Music Festival. Just easy ways to engage with your family, your friends, your community, and give back at the same time. So we really encourage folks to both support Long Island Cares and come out to the May Day Music Festival on May 14th. We're looking forward to it. We hope our listeners are. And Paul, we really thank you for joining us today and for the work you do every single day for the people of Long Island.
Thank you, Ryan. It's always my pleasure to be with you.
Thank you. And on behalf of President Leveler and AME, thank you for listening, folks. We'll see you next week.